Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In the last tutorial we created this awesome phone system and we've had a lot of positive feedback for that. I am eternally grateful, and in this tutorial, just to continue on from it, we're going to start adding our own contact screen so we can select from all the existing contacts we have, and we're going to be able to randomly pick one and call them, bypassing the call screen. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do in our game is I'm going to jump back to our phone here, and you can see we've got the keypad screen and the call screen. None of these really match what we need to do, but I'm going to copy the keypad one because that has the button that takes us between the keypad and the call screen. And all our contacts is going to do is list all of our contacts down in a row, and that when you click on them, it will call the contact. Nice and straightforward. So I'm going to come down and go into my UI folder, and I'm going to find my phone and my keypad screen. Here we go. And I'm going to duplicate this, so just holding Control as I drag it and click copy, and I'm going to call it contacts. So you can see in here we've got our grid panel here, but we don't actually need a grid panel for the contacts because we can just get away with just using a vertical box. So we don't even need the TXT numbers either. We just need the vertical box like so. So I'm just going to come and rename this to VB contacts. I'm going to make sure it's ticked as is variable. Then we actually need our contact component. So let's go and create that now. So I'm going to come back down to my phone UI folder, and I'm going to copy the keypad button, and I'll click copy, and I will call it phone contact button so we can separate the logic out. And here we go. So I'm going to go for the typical Android style contact screen, which I've got my phone in front of me now. So I'm not going to do anything fancy like having the voice assisted find, the create a contact with searching. We don't need that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to keep the button and the overlay just like we've got. I'm going to keep the size box and the button because we can work with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and untick the width so it can be any width because we'll set it to the full size. And I'll actually come and set the height to be something like 150, so it's a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come and inside here I'm going to add a horizontal like so, just under the image selection. I'm going to drag the text inside of it, and then I can copy the image selection and just also paste it inside the horizontal box. So this first image will be our image profile picture. So this will be the picture of the contact, and then the text will be the name of the contact. So I'll just call this TXT name. I'll call it something like decryption, and then we just need a profile picture for decryption. So I will just come and set one. I just set it to the police, and then you can see I can't see it, and that's purposely because I have set the visibility to collapse. So if I come and change it to non-hit testable because we don't want it to block anything, and I'm going to also show it in the eyeball here. So we can see we have our image there. I'm going to just center align it vertically and horizontally so it looks perfect and it's not stretched or anything. And I might come and resize the image just to make it look a bit nicer. 64. There we go. And I'll set it to fill. I'm just going to come in and reduce the right and left margin just so it's a little bit closer. And then I'm going to come and enable the selection just so I can test what it looks like. So when it's enabled, it will look like so. And we've obviously got a bad profile picture for this one, which is fine. That'll do. I'm going to compile and save it, and we'll get a bunch of errors because we've changed things. So that's completely fine. I'm going to jump into the graph here, and starting at the top, we've got the pre-construct and the construct to set the button's text. So we know that's working okay. But what I'm also going to do is drag our image profile picture in, and I'm going to do set brush from soft texture. The reason we're using soft texture and not texture is that means we can use a soft object reference here, meaning it's not loaded in memory all the time. It's only loaded in memory when we tell it we want to use it. So I'll promote that to a variable, and I will call it profile picture. Like so. The next we can come down to the set highlighted and unhighlighted, and you can see our image selection is turning on and off. That's completely fine. And then when we come down to the ED clicked, we actually need to update this to the current widget. So I will change this to WB phone contact button like so, and then when we compile this time it should just all sync up nicely. You notice when we go back everything's disappeared, and that's purely because we haven't got a default. So if I come and click on phone widget contact button inside my hierarchy, I'm going to come and set the button text to just be decryption as test, and the profile picture I will set back to the police just so when we hit compile it all looks correct. Now you'll notice we've kept the payload text, and the reason we're going to do this is we don't want to actually render the contact's number. That's why you have contacts. You have a name associated with it because we as humans recognize a name better we do as a long series of numbers. So what we can do is use the payload text as the number. So if I just bash a bunch of keys, that can be the decryption's number. It's hidden in the background, but when we call this button, when we click it and the ED on clicked is triggered, we can actually get access to the button and get the payload text to get the number, and we can get the payload text to actually get the number of this contact. So it's a nice easy way of passing the numbers around. I'm going to compile and save, and that is our contact button pretty much done. So jumping back to the contact screen, we could just come in, and for each contact we could just come in and drag it in, and then we've got decryption, it's looking okay, and then we can set decryption's number, we can duplicate it, but that's not going to work in a game where you can unlock new contacts. So what we're going to look at doing is dynamically adding contacts. So just before we do that, you're going to see one big issue we currently have so far. So if you imagine this is the size of our phone, so if I come up here and set desired, you can see this is roughly the size of our phone. So we can duplicate a couple more, and you'll see it'll go on and on and on forever, and our phone is not that big. So we need to find a way to make it automatically scroll to the correct size, and this is really easy to do. So I'm going to come in and delete the VB contacts, and I'm actually going to add in a scroll box instead, and I will call this SB contacts, and then I will make sure it's a variable. You will see if we can come in and drag our contact button in, when it runs out of space, it will automatically add a scroll bar for us. So let's dynamically look at creating these contacts, and it's really easy to do. I'm going to jump back to the graph, and we'll start fixing some errors, and then we'll start loading the contact. So the first thing we need to do is cache the buttons. Well, we don't need to do that anymore because that was an old thing for caching existing buttons. We don't have any. So I'm going to delete that off, and I'm going to delete the cache buttons function. The next is to set highlighted for the first menu button, again, which we do want, but we actually need to load the contacts first. So I'm just going to add a comment here because I know we need to do it first. Load contacts. Then we're coming and set the TXT numbers. We don't need that, and we don't need to validate text. So we've cleared that one up nicely. So when it ends, we're going to clear the menu buttons off. We will do that, but we need to modify the widget for it. So we do need to do this. So what I'm going to do is come back to the menu buttons, and I'm just going to set the type to our new contact button, like so. It will ask me to change the variable type. Just click OK, and then when it finishes, it'll tell you how many references it's changed. I don't really need to know, so I'm just going to cross it off. I'm going to delete this clear, and from this menu buttons, I'm going to drag up and just click clear. So just re-add it, and then you'll see up here it's trying to do the get again. So I will drag up here, I will do get, and then I will drag from this and do set highlighted, like so. I think and now that we've got the core concept done, we can scroll down and just see if everything else is right. We've got setting the phone widget, which is correct. We're okay with that. We've got actually clicking the number button, which we don't need anymore, so we can delete all of that. We've got the back button, which we will add back in shortly, so let's keep that alive for now. We've got the call button, which we are going to need, but we're going to actually delete the call part because we need the change screen for later. And then the delete part, we don't need still, so we can just get rid of all of that. And that is pretty much the structure. We can also get rid of the validate function and the get phone number. We don't need that. And then finally, we can just jump into set selected menu button, and you can see we just simply need to recreate this. So I'll do a for each loop. I'll drag off the array element and do set unhighlighted. I will connect that to the loop body. I can then delete the set highlighted, and I can click the set menu highlight button, and I can change the inputs to be our phone contact button, and then I can drag from here and do set highlighted, and I can connect this to the completed here and the exec to the function. So all this will do, if you've not seen this one before, is when it's called, it will loop over all of our buttons on the screen and unhighlight them all, and then it will highlight only the one we've told it to do. So prime example, on the start when we first run this screen, it will get the first menu contact and set it to highlighted. So that's useful for the controllers and up and down arrow keys if you're not using your mouse. And we can just hit compile on that. You can see it does not have a matching component, which is the back button. That's fine, we can add that in shortly. So if you can see now, we can come back to our phone here, and we can search for our new contact screen, and we can just add this in underneath the very last one. Make sure it's the last one because we do use the order here very specifically. You can see it's kind of empty at the moment, so let's go and add our contacts in. And this is actually really simple to do. Now I'm going to create a new function here called load contacts. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag off from here, and we're going to do get data table row names. And we're going to assign it a data table, which is our contacts data table here. So you see, if I open this up here, we've got S phone contacts. That should be called DT. Never mind. DT phone contacts. You can see we have our row names here, which is the actual numbers of the people. So what we can do is get each number of the contact, and then we call another function afterwards of get data table row. And that node requires a row name, which will be our numbers here. So let's just put this into practice then. So we can get rid of the button now. We don't need it. We can come into here. we've got our table for our DT phone contacts. It's going to give us a list of all the row names, so I can for each loop over all of them. And then from the loop body, I can drag off and do get data table row, like so. And then we can plug the array element into the row name, and the data table will be our contact. And now from the out row, we now have full access to all of the contacts details. The way we're doing this, the row not found is never going to be called, because we are getting all of the rows from the data table and applying it back into it. So from the row found, we can just drag off and do create widget. Our widget class will be our phone contact button, and you'll see we need to pass it a bunch of sounds. The phone click is the first one. That's okay with that. The button text will be the name of the person. The payload text will be the number. So from the array element of the for each loop, where we're looping over all of the names, I'm just going to drag this over to the payload text here. You'll see it'll convert it. That's completely fine to do. And we'll just double tap the line in order to neaten it up. So now you'll notice we've got nowhere to actually place the picture here. We don't need the other two, the line busy sound or the dialogue. We don't need that on the contact screen. So we actually need to go back to our button now. So I'm going to tap this magnifying glass to open it up, and I'm going to double click to open it. And back in our graph, if I click our profile picture, you'll see that we've just simply not enabled instance editable and expose on spawn. Hitting compile and save, we can jump back to here. You'll probably not see it, but if you do, all good. If you don't, just right click and do refresh nodes. And now we can grab the picture and plug it in. Make it a bit neater, I'm just going to click the break and click hide unconnected pins, just to really only show what we need. So I'm going to drag in the SB contacts, which is our scroll bar, and I'm going to drag up and I'm going to do add child. Now there is an important note here. Normally when you do add widget, you will drag off and do add to viewport. This won't work. This will instead render it to your actual screen as a separate widget every time. We don't want that. Instead, what we want is to drag from the SB contacts and do add child. So this will add it into the existing SB contacts, which it belongs to our phone. And I can simply drag it in, and then the return value will become the content like so. Now you'll notice we're not populating the menu buttons, which is something we need to handle selections. So I am just going to make some space in between here. I'm going to drag our menu buttons in, and I'm going to drag up and just do add. And it'll ask for a widget, which we can just plug into the return value, and we can plug the add in like so. We can even make it a little bit neater if we double click the lines and just drag them down a little bit like so it's a bit separate. So now we build up the menu buttons and we add it to child, and that's pretty much it. And that is everything we need to do to load the contact. So if we jump back to the event graph and drag our load contacts function in like so, we can plug it in, and then we can plug it in. No, that's not right. And now that we've done that, the final thing we need to do is actually bind to the click event of this button and tell it to actually initiate the call. So I'm going to drag off from this here, which is the return value. I'm going to do bind clicked, and we'll look for our bind event to ed clicked. If you don't know which event to bind to, just simply come and open your button back up and double check what you've called your event dispatcher. So I'm going to drag this up here just on the end of the add child. You can really do it any point after you've created it. And then from the event, I'm going to drag down and do create event, create a matching event, and I'll add it here. I will just call it contact button clicked. And then I will cut this, paste it in the event graph, because that's where I like all my buttons to be. And then we'll jump back to the load contacts, and because it always errors, just make sure you select the correct function. Now I can compile and save, ignore the warning for now. Now I can jump back to our event graph, and just after the event start, we can drag our load contacts in, which will go off and load all the contacts, and then we can set the first one highlighted. Perfect. So at this stage, we now have our contacts listed on the screen. So let's now add the functionality to click our contact. So when we click a contact, what do we need to do? Firstly, we need to change to the call screen. So I'm going to cut this here and paste it here. I can't remember why we kept it, but it'll work. And the call screen, I'll jump back to the widget phone, is our menu is 0, our keypad is 1, our call is 2. And I'm just counting them manually. There's nothing what tells you. So I know this needs to be number 2. So I'll set it to 2. It starts at 0. But as soon as we change to the screen there, it's going to start trying to call it. And this is where we've almost created a problem last tutorial, but it's an easily resolved one. So if we come and open up full screen here, we know that in order for it to load the contact in the UI button, it goes back to the phone widget, grabs the keypad screen, and gets the phone number from it. Now this is good and all, but we're not setting the number on the keypad, so this won't work. We don't want to be going from the contact screen to the keypad screen to set the text to come back to the call screen so it can read it. That's a horrible journey, and it's just too confusing. So if we think about what we've got is we have our phone as a middle ground. So we know the keypad and the call and the contacts all need access to the number to be able to set it. And there very well might be other screens later that also need contacts, say an email or a messaging system. So what I'm going to do on the phone is I'm going to come into the graph and I'm actually going to store the current phone number in the phone here. So I'm going to come in and type in current phone row name, and I'm going to set this to a type of name. And then that's all we need to do there. So I'm going to actually click compile on that. Now I'm going to come back to the call screen, what we created last time, and instead of getting the phone number from the keypad, I'm actually just going to drag off and do get current phone name, like so. And then I will set it right there. I can then neaten it up a little bit just so it looks okay, like so. And then this call screen will now look in that location for it, for the number to call. So that means from our contact screen, all we need to do on the event graph is set that number. So if I drag off from here, and from the button, if you remember, we had the payload. So I will say get payload text, and this is going to get the actual phone number. And then from the phone widget, I'm going to drag off and do set current row name. And I will plug it in, and then I will plug this into the change screen. So after it's set it will try to go to the call screen. And I'm just going to neaten this up actually by just pasting the phone widget in twice, just because it looks a bit neater. There we go. And then from the payload text, I'm just going to connect it to the current none. And you'll see it says it's not compatible. I don't know why Unreal doesn't do this for us. I find it weird. But all you have to, and then from the string, you should be able to drag to the text and it'll automatically convert it like so. So now that we've added our current phone row name here, we actually need to update the keypad screen, because currently it populates the text here. And then we were expecting the call screen to come back to this text, but that's no longer the case. So what I'm going to do instead is where we have this get phone number here, I'm actually going to delete this function off because we don't need it anymore. And instead, where we come down and we call here, where we change it, I'm actually going to drag this off to the side like so. And I'm going to copy the phone widget and paste it here. Then I will do set current phone row name. And then the row name that it needs is our current set of numbers. So after I've plugged this in, all we need to do is get the TXT numbers and do the target to get text. Then just like we did before, I'm just going to come and convert it to a string, and then we should be able to plug it in like so. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that's the keypad screen fixed. And that's the contact screen. So when we first load the contact screen, we'll load all the contacts and we'll set the first one to highlighted. When a contact is clicked, it will come down here and it will get the payload text, which is the number of the contact, and it will set the current row phone name, and then it will call the phone widget's change screen, which will move to the call screen, which will go back to our current row name and attempt to call them, bypassing the aspect of having to type in the number. So I'm going to come back and open up our menu screen, which is this one here, and we need to actually unlock one of these buttons to be the contact screen. So if I come and select this phone menu button here, and I will come and call it the contacts screen. So I know I can come and set the icon to be our new contact icon, like so. I've got a little booklet thing, that's what most people use. And then the widget switcher index, if I come back to the phone, I know is 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's number 3 I need to switch to load the contacts. So I'll set it to be number 3, and the phone click can be the same. And then one final check I will just do is I will just make sure that it's set as is enabled, otherwise it'll be disabled. Now if we compile and save and jump back to our phone, you can see if we click the widget, we have the contacts icon. So if I come and play it now, and if we enable our phone, you can see we have the contacts icon. I probably should have added it next to it, it doesn't matter. So I'll come and click it, and we have a list of our contacts. Awesome. So there is some work what we need to do. For example, if the icon doesn't exist, it's currently just using the police icon. So we've got an unknown person's icon for that. And then it's currently falling off and it's not being the right width. So there is definitely some improvements we can do. But if we come and click one of them, you'll see it comes across, and who's it going to call? There we go. So we have successfully called Lily. However, another problem you've noticed is, well, it's also doubling it up. So we've got another bug to fix, is we haven't unlocked Lily as a contact. So why is it loading Lily? And this is something we can fix really easily using the game instance. So let's do one bug at a time. So this contact here was far too long and it was wrapping off. So I do think 24 is a little bit large for a name. So I'm going to come in and type 18. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I could also make the icon a bit smaller because it was quite large, so I'll set this to about 50 to 50. So we've got a bit more room to play with. And I'm also going to come down on the text, search for overflow, and I'm just going to set it to ellipsis. So if it does go over it, it'll show what it can, then replace the rest with an ellipsis, hopefully. If we compile and save, that's the first bit solved. The next bit was it wasn't ever recreating the contacts, they were always remaining. So if we come back to the phone screen contacts here, what we can actually do is when we call exit up here, we can actually clear out all of the menu buttons. So I'm just going to drag in the SB contacts and I'm just going to do clear children, like so. And that should now stop them from also duplicating. The next bug we had was when we were loading the contacts, it was always passing in the profile picture. And if it didn't exist, then it would simply use the pleases picture because that was the default one. So what I'm going to do is just drag all this across, and from the profile picture, I'm going to come off and do a select, like so. So this index, we just need to give it something to be able to switch between the different options. So I'm going to drag from the picture here, and I'm going to do is valid soft object reference, and this will give us a boolean. If this boolean is true, then it means the photo picture has been assigned a reference to a picture. So we can drag this into the index like so. So if it's true that it's found it, then we can just put the picture into it like so. But if it's false, then I'm going to search for my unknown person icon here, and with a little bit of tidying and a little bit of love, you can see we can make it look a little bit like so. And then the final bug we had was it was loading all contacts, despite if you've actually unlocked them or not. And that is because of this here, the get data table row names. This is looping through and getting every single game lore contact, whether you have unlocked them, whether you can never unlock them, it's loading every single one, and we don't want that. So in the last tutorial, we actually went and created a game instance because it will save it between levels. So in my GI main here, we actually have a list of unlocked contacts as names, and nicely, this is actually the row name of the contact. So in here, we will store 999, or in Lily's case, we will store that number. So what we can actually do back on our load contracts is delete this get data table row names, and instead I can get my game instance. So I'll do get game instance and make sure you tick the game, not the widget. From here, I will cast it to my main. So GI main, and then this array here is looking for an array of names. So all we have to do is drag off and do get unlocked contacts, and then we can simply plug it into the array there. So now this should only load the contacts that we have actually unlocked. So let's come and give it a try now after compiling and saving. So if I press P and access the contacts, there we go. We only have one contact, which is the police. It's not full width, which we can work with in a minute, but if we call them, it jumps straight in. And if I jump back to the contact, you see it's not rendered it multiple times. Perfect. How cool is that? Now, just for testing's sake, I'm actually going to unlock Lily's number directly in our GI main, just so I can test if her long name is also working. So if I compile and save it after adding the unlocked contact, press P, contacts, there we go. So Lily Thompson is fitting on quite nicely, but we do need to fix the width issue because it's too big, and she's also got the incorrect icon, which is perfect because we don't know what she looks like yet. So I'm going to come back to my phone screen contact button here, and you'll see on the button it's just sent to center align it. What I'm going to do is just tell it to be full width, and if we compile and we jump back into the game now, simply by setting that one little change, we should be able to now see everything is fully widthed like so. If you would like to add some padding just so it's not directly near each edge, you can just come back to the contact button, and on the button here we will just add some left and right padding. Let's do 10 by 10. So it's still being full width, but it's padded off just by that little bit either side, just to make it that much nicer look. So from a quick test, I've just gone into our phone screen contacts and added a bunch of default contacts, and you'll see they're all insanely large. And if you click on them, you can see that actually the selection is 150, meaning this height is just too big for what we need. Since we give each contact an icon, we don't actually need the size box to control this button. If I come back to the phone contact button, I'm actually going to click the button here and Control X to cut it, and I'm going to delete the size box and paste it back in. And you'll notice absolutely nothing changes here, which is perfectly fine. But if I go back to the phone screen contacts, everything is nicely aligned now. If I compile this and jump back to the contacts, you will see they're all nicely aligned next to each other. However, I want a little gap between them all because I think that'll look nice than having them all scrunched up. I'm just going to come back to the phone screen button. I'm going to click the overlay and I'm just going to add a padding to the bottom of 10, and I can hit compile. You won't notice anything here, but back on the phone you'll see is now a nice little gap like so. So I'm just going to come back to contacts and I'm going to delete these contact buttons because we don't want them there. Now the next thing we need to do is actually add a back button. So just like the keypad here, we've got our list of contacts at the top, which we would have if we were on the contacts page, but we need some other buttons down below. So the first one we need is a back button. We need to be able to jump back to the menu screen. The next one, which we only really need 2 on this screen, is the dial button. So looking at my phone now when I'm in the contacts, I can look up and down all the contacts I have, and then I have buttons across the bottom for favorites, recent and contacts. We don't need to worry about that. And then we also have a dial button so I can go and start typing in the contact's number. And these 2 buttons are really simple because all they're going to do is change the screen on the phone. Nice and easy. So I'm going to jump into our phone screen contact here, and I'm actually going to cut the SB contacts, the scroll box. And I'm going to come and add in a vertical box that I'm almost sure we deleted at the beginning. And I'm going to paste in the scroll box. I'm going to make sure that the scroll box is ticked for fill, which means it will try and take up as much space as it has access to. Meaning if there's nothing there, it will take up the full space of the phone. If there is something there, it'll take up as much as it can. Then under here, I'm going to come and add a horizontal box, which will store our banner across the bottom. And I'll make sure that's under the scroll bar, not inside of it. And then in here, I can start adding my menu button, like so. This one I will call PMB back, and you'll see it's automatically jumped us here because it knows it's the same component. So I can just compile that, and now the warning has disappeared. For the icon, I'm going to set it to my back icon. And then for the widget switcher index, I'm going to set it to 0 because I want it to take us back to the menu screen when you click back. And then the sound will be completely fine. I'm then going to come and duplicate this button, and I will call this keypad, and then I'm just going to come up here and search for my dial icon here, so a nice little grid because that's what my phone has, and I'm going to set the widget switcher index to our call keypad screen, which is number 1. And I'm going to hit compile and save like so. So the back button already has an event on it to take it back. So the only other one we need to do is the keypad button, which will basically do the exact same thing. So I'll come in, ED clicked. I'm even going to drag it up near here just to show how similar it is. I'm going to copy these 2, paste it here, and connect it up like so. And that's all you need to do. If I hit compile and save now, if I jump back into my phone and click the contacts, so you can see, oh, they are next to each other. I don't necessarily want them next to each other. I don't think that's a good look. So I'm going to come back to my contacts screen here. Let's take a look. So I will set the back icon. I'm actually going to set it to the horizontal left align, and I'll set the contacts to the right aligning. So now that we've set them left and right aligned, I'm also just going to make sure that both sizes on them are set to fill, so it takes up as much space as it can, which, because there's only 2 buttons, will be 50% each roughly. If I hit compile and jump back into the phone, you will now see the contacts are separated, which is exactly how I want. You click the back button over here, you click dial over here. And let's give it a try, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what it looks like now. So I can come in, I can click P, I can jump to my contacts. You can see I have 2 contacts. I can click the dial button to go straight to the dial because I know the name of the contact. I can come in and go, oh, actually no, I remember which contact I want. I'll click the back button, I'll jump back into the contact screen, and I'll say, it's Lily, look. And we can call Lily. So I'm going to hang up because I don't want to talk to Lily. If I click contacts, I can also come back button, back to the contacts, the police, and it's all working really nicely. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? And now for the next part, just because it wouldn't be a decryption tutorial without including narrative in some way, I'm going to show you how to create a super quick event where you can dynamically add contacts to your game instance. So maybe I want it that once you come talk to Hiroshi here, Hiroshi, because he's a nice guy, he gives you his contact. So I'm going to come back to my narrative events, and this is only for narrative. If you have another dialogue or quest system where you can run events on dialogue, this is what you're going to need. This will just be a brief guide on how to unlock contacts. But for narrative's sake, I'm going to come to narrative and I'm going to take event and I'll type in any unlock contact. Inside here, I will overwrite the execute event. And the first thing we want to do is actually get the game instance so we can unlock it. And from here, I'm going to drag up and cast it to my main instance, just like we did on the loading of the contacts. I'll plug it in. And then all we need to do is drag off here and do get unlocked contacts. And then from the array, simply do add and I'm going to do unique, which means if you've already unlocked the contact, it won't add it again. It will check before it adds it. Whereas if you were to just call add and say you have 5 options to be able to unlock Hiroshi, but you decide to do all 5 of them, you'll unlock him 5 times, which you don't want because then it will glitch out. And then from the text remaining, I'm just going to promote it to a variable. I'm going to call it contact to unlock and just plug it in there and connect this to my return node there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just pretty much how you unlock new contacts, and that will work on the fly. Just for my narrative's sake, I am just going to come and populate it in the get graph display text with an append, so I can actually just say unlock contact : and I will drag in the contact to unlock and plug it into the B. I'll come to the class settings and I'll just set the blueprint display name to be unlock contact, and the category will be phone. So now if I come to Hiroshi here and I open his dialog up, so he's got plenty of dialogue here. When he says he likes your spirit, I want to unlock the phone contact. So I'm just going to come and add the event. I will come in at pick unlock contact at the bottom. And you can see it's simply asking us when we want to unlock the contact. I will say at the end of the conversation, and we need to provide it the contact to unlock. So I don't actually have a contact for Hiroshi yet, so let's add a new one because it's really easy to do. I'm just going to simply tick add. I will double click in new row and I will type, and that's Hiroshi's number. And then in here, I will type his name. So it is Hiroshi Tanaka. I don't have a picture for him yet, so we'll leave that. I don't have a line busy. So I will simply come into the dialogue. But now I can copy the number just by double clicking it. And back in my dialogue with him, I can simply paste in the contact to unlock his number. And you'll see it will unlock the contact. And now with that simple change, ladies and gentlemen, if I run the game now, you can see if I check the contacts, I have 2 contacts. I have Lily and the police. If I exit out of here, and now if I run up to Hiroshi here and speak to him, I can blast through his dialogue and we have unlocked his contact. If I go back to P and check the contact, you can now see I have 3 contacts. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? That is our brand new phone contact system where we have the ability to list all the available contacts that we have unlocked. We can jump back. We can jump between the screens nice and easily to do anything we need. We can even call them with a click of the button. And as a special treat for the narratives, we can also now unlock contacts on the fly from dialogue or quests anywhere we want. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you've liked this tutorial, please hit the thumbs up. We're getting closer to 10,000 subscribers now. It's a huge milestone. I don't think the channel's ever been close to that. So thank you very much, everybody.